Bonsoir, mon ami. He became French, and I don't know why. Have we all enjoyed our evenings? I fucking have. It's been incredible. I'm ridiculously bubbly this evening because it's just been such a joy to get to see everyone perform. And it does not stop now. We have one final artist to share with you, and I'm so excited to see him perform. I'm going to get out my phone because I'm at a point of having had 2 wines and therefore can't remember people's bios. But Oliver James Lomax is a poet, educator, and a trustee of the Working Class Movement Library in Salford. He passionately believes in cultural equality and the power of the arts to enable everyone in society to have a voice. He's published 5 collections of poetry, including The Dandelion Clock and Burial of the Cameo, damn fine poems full of emotional resonance and vivid imagery, the world made fresh to the eye and the ear. That is the opinion of Ian Rankin. Oliver has written poetry for film and television, and in 2019 released his first spoken word single, described by Tom Robinson, BBC Six Music, as an unholy hybrid of John Cooper Clarke and Mark E. Smith. Last year, he released his debut album of working class love poem, Shadrack and Duxbury, 2023, and he is currently touring across the UK. His poems are now taught in schools. Poems that dance with originality and are tenderly unafraid of love and belonging, says Mark Thomas. Beautifully written poems from a unique voice of integrity and spirit, Maxine Peake. Please, everyone, welcome to the stage, Oliver James Lomax.
Thank you very much. It's so lovely to be here. I'm sorry I was a little bit late to this event. I was looking after my 2 boys until my girlfriend got back with the car, but I'm so sorry to miss some of the other poets, but Biz, that was absolutely wonderful. I quickly re-edited my set after being so impressed by it. So to begin at the beginning, I'm originally from Bolton, and you might not think there's much poetry in Bolton, and you'd be absolutely fucking right about that. But I wrote this first poem in Bolton Hospital canteen. I don't go there to dine, not anymore anyway. I was visiting somebody, but as I was sat there was an elderly couple sat across from me, and the lady said to her husband, "I don't want to die in a place like this. Let's buy a bottle of whiskey and backstroke together into the sea." At which point, her husband turned to her in a really broad Bolton accent and said, "Yeah, all right, love, as long as it's not bells." Which I thought was quite wonderful. Not concerned by the proposed suicide pact, but by the quality of whiskey. I'm not sure where they are now, perhaps halfway across the mid-Atlantic, but I wrote them this speculative poem. It's called The Pact. And when their bodies had grown too old, and they could no longer be free, they made a pact to backstroke together into the sea, holding hands and a bottle of whiskey, 87 and 93, respectively, moving slowly with the chop of the waves and journeying to eternity. Belly up to the gods and the constellations in perfect liberty, expose their final act of love as 2 skinny dippers in matching slippers. True love really differs, and it compelled an otherworldly hand to turn the snow-shaker earth on its head and then cradle it like a giant tear. And when the blizzard had settled, they had both disappeared, their lives reset, born again. Jesus wept. Thank you. I do have some funny poems, and I try and stagger these throughout the set, and then the sorrow is too overwhelming. So I will apologise for this poem in advance. The reason I was in Bolton Hospital canteen, I was visiting my nan. My nan brought me up when I was little, and sadly she passed away from dementia 6 years ago now. And the day that she died, coincidentally, was the day that one of my books was published. And although she couldn't understand, I went and sat and read her all the poems anyway. And even though she didn't recognise who I was, she did this unbelievable thing, really. She sat up in her bed and sang every word of One Side of Secret Love by Doris Day. So this sort of old 50s show tune, I guess, was hidden deep within her, and this was, I guess, her parting poetic gift to me. In a very strange turn of events, I was invited to read this poem at 10 Downing Street on National Poetry Day. Quite why the current Conservative Party are having a National Poetry Day is a great mystery to us all, obviously, because poetry is about empathy and love and understanding, and none of the things you associate with the current Conservative government. But if you've ever had to read a poem to Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, or Nadeem Zahawi, nothing will ever fucking faze you again, I can guarantee you. Coincidentally, they were very interested that my nan was also called Margaret, and I had to reassure them that is where the association with Margaret Thatcher fucking ended. Yeah, but this is for Nan, One Side of Secret Love. Nan died the same day that my book came, and although she could no longer understand, I read it to her anyway, because that morning she sat up in her bed and, unable to recognise my face, sang every word of Secret Love by Doris Day, and whilst I found myself lost on my own page, she sang from the quarry of a dream, where the silence of her eyes asked you to love her one last time. She sang through sanity's restless camouflage, into the distance between me and her, into the void where the poetry might come. And she sang like a telltale heart with a mouthful of stars spilling its darkness. She sang with the integrity of birds on the prow, her figurehead ship coursing through my blood, through the shaking barley of 86 summers and 32,000 days. She sang from another time. She sang of my granddad. She sang like prayer, moving at the pace of Exodus. She sang in our hearts, throbbing like the constellations as we stood over her. She sings there still. She always will. This next poem was inspired by a lady I know who lives on a council estate in Wythenshawe, and she was tired of tending to the small patch of grass she has in her back garden, and wanted some astroturf and couldn't quite afford it. And her son very kindly went out and liberated some local all-weather pitch, so she now has a little 6-yard box and a penalty spot in her back garden. And it conjured the immortal line, "Don't laugh at my astroturf, Diane." When her sister went round and was quite rightly taking the piss out of me for it. And I wrote it down, and I thought, I'm going to have to make this into a poem, and somehow here we are. Don't laugh at my astroturf, Diane. Don't you dare fucking laugh at my astroturf, Diane. It's not so long back your kids used to call me ma'am, so don't you dare fucking laugh at my astroturf, Diane. The lads have rolled that out better than universal credit. Is your new patio paved with the books of Norman Tevitt? On your bike you're talking tripe, the meek will never inherit. I'm still waiting at the arms window for my direct debit. And so what if my new back lawn has a 6-yard box and a penalty spot? It's my field of dreams. I'm just doing the best with what I've got. I didn't want any charity garden DIY SOS from a crooning Nick Knowles. My little pitch was once graced by an infant Paul Scholes. I've some pride left, leave me with that. My heart's on the breadline, but that's intact. Go on, you can get out. I like you better when you had note. And you might be laughing all the way to the food bank next season of giving. My astroturf is just like you, Diane. It's a fucking substitute for the living. Thank you. In a strange bit of serendipity, Tony Blair has just come up in conversation. And I wrote this next poem. My girlfriend's from Warwick, and we went down there to visit her family at Christmas time. And I walked past an antique shop, and there in the window between the Clarice Cliff and the Lalique was a fucking giant Toblerone. And obviously my intrigue got the better of me, and I went in to inquire. And I was sort of just curious, I wonder what you've got on the Toblerone in the window. And this lady very arrogantly went, we're looking for offers in the region of £350. So I was, right, wow, that's just out of curiosity, what gives a Toblerone such value? And she said, well, it's signed. I said, signed by who? She said, it's signed by Tony Blair. But it's also signed by Michael Howard and Charles Kennedy, and he's dead now, so it must be real. That's what she said to me. And I couldn't fucking unsee this thing. I couldn't write any other poem because the ghost of Tony Blair's Toblerone was just hung before me for the next fucking 2 weeks. So I had to write my way past it. And so she was like, but you could make me an offer. Well, I'm not fucking haggling for this thing, you know. I don't want it, you know. But before I could move on emotionally, I wrote this, which is rather unimaginatively titled Tony Blarone. Vladimir Nabokov had his butterflies, Lemmy had his Hitler Youth knives, me, I kind of want this giant Toblerone signed by Tony Blair. A Downing Street raffle prize circa 2003-2005, indeed a rare item to survive with all the chocolate mountains still inside. I'm assured by the dealer in the Warwick Antique gift shop window that it's yours for something in the region of £350, but are quite willing to offers and open to come down on this unique piece with additional signatures from Michael Howard and Charles Kennedy, deceased, proving that this could in no way be a forgery. A Matterhorn of war crime confectionery for those with a sweet tooth more profound than their own mortality. So, future collectors, please keep your eyes peeled for that early Clarice Cliff egg cup, the lost letters of Gracie Fields, for that first edition On the Road signed by Kerouac, and a rare discontinued Karamak autographed by Rishi Sunak. Florence Nightingale had a rubbish Egyptian amulet, said the protective goddess Tarouette. Phil Collins has the rifle once owned by Davy Crockett. That's fucking true, I googled that, and that's really weird as well. But me, I kind of want this giant Toblerone signed by Tony Blair. However, in a frightening act of plagiarism, Keir Starmer schmoozed in and snapped it up. Dove to drunk Dundee in his bare feet, and bewildered in a lay-by, he consumed a lot. There is no why. Some things will never figure, but feel safe in the knowledge that your ego never looked at a Toblerone and thought, that could really fucking do with my signature. It's strange, I really did. If I was a richer man, I think I would have bought it.
Whatever happened to Toblerone?
Yeah, I have been buying Toblerones and sort of sharing it equally as an act of socialism in a protest against the current Labour government. But it's fucking, they're expensive and it's costing me. So anyway. This next poem was, well, sort of inspired, but about 5 years ago I got pretty sick. You know, I love being a poet and I love teaching, but I discovered drugs and alcohol and it was hard to juggle fucking all three things, I'll be honest with you. And I got pretty poorly and I ended up moving up to near where my stepdad lives, and my mum and my stepdad aren't together anymore. He met a man called Peter and they are married and it's all very beautiful. And I was actually best man at his wedding. I gave him away, which was lovely. But yeah, I moved up and I went charity shop shopping and saw this lovely shirt and I thought, oh, I'll have that. Anyway, I bought it and I went up to their house for dinner later that day, and he kind of looked at me as I walked in, and he was like, "Where did you get that shirt from?" I was like, "I got it from Sue Ryder and Heat and More." He went, "I fucking gave that in last week." So, this is affectionately called Buying Your Gay Dad Shirt Back from a Sue Ryder. And it opens with a line from Scrooge, and looking every inch the grand fellow he is in one of my own collars. There's a million accidental ways to say I love you, and this is one of them. It had always been a riskless task to hit the charity shops of the more affluent areas in South Manchester, unless that is, you happen to discover an unpublished poem by Ryan Giggs sleeping inside the breast pocket of a pre-loved designer suit jacket. And near as damn it there I was in Poet's Corner of the Heat and More Sue Ryder, weighing up some dog-eared Kierkegaard. To Kath, stick a mince pie in your God-shaped hole. Love John and Blaise Pascal, Christmas 91. But in the annex of my eye and going for a song was a wall of coat-hangered ghosts, and in particular, a lilac shirt, hardly worn, from a smoke-free home. Uncanny, I thought, in my best Alan Bennett impersonation voice. And arriving in it with pride for dinner later that night, ringing the doorbell like a euphemism, you looked upon me like that time I came home from university with communism. I was returning a little piece of your past, and I had bought your fucking exact shirt back. However, to blush is for the gods, not us. And sometimes I might be heard to say, I thought everyone's dad rollerbladed and listened to Barbara Streisand. In that vulgar way, I must walk the fire. But please, pay it no mind, because when I was dying, you were there, to clothe and feed every martyred word, and window dress my feigned oblivion without condition, and knew I must live in that place, beyond this wry, drunk smile, and always stayed a while, and went to any length, and buttoned my shirt that time. I hadn't the strength. So I'm lucky enough to work for the Poetry Society, and I go to lots of schools and work with some amazing young poets across the country. And I always find it so inspiring. I was just talking before about, I guess, how much our politicians could learn from the young people in this country. But a particular poetry workshop that I was running had real resonance for me about 12 months ago, where I live in Altrincham, in the village next door, Hale, which is quite, if anyone's familiar with Manchester, it's dead posh. And in the middle of Hale, there's an old hotel, and they've moved lots of families who are claiming asylum into that, which is quite beautiful, actually, because I think it might wake the fucking people of Hale up to what they actually are, but that's another story entirely. And I was running a little poetry workshop in a community centre, and in this centre they put on a free meal for the asylum seekers, and lots of these young children came into the poetry workshop and really they couldn't speak any English, and it kind of broke down really, and we ended up playing. Has anyone seen this game Throw Burrito? Have you seen that? It's like a weird card game with two stuffed burritos. But we couldn't play the card game either, so we just kind of had a game of dodgeball between the group of British kids that I was working with, and so it became, but it was like the most beautiful thing unspoken, really. And I went away and wrote this poem about it. It's called Playing Throw Burrito with a family of asylum seekers in a community centre in Altrincham. Not the snappiest fucking title. Of all the incendiary devices at our disposal, we have chosen these form amigos, and when children come to terms, it is often unspoken. So pull the ghost of a pin of a grenade and toss it our way. Let us exchange our separate pain, where the burrito smiles broadly in mid-air, knowing it's neither here nor there. Just as love breaks in every wave, declaring itself on the shore. Thank you for travelling so far to this moment. We are the richer for it, like a wished-on coin dropped back into circulation, waiting for a new wish. Is this not capitalism? Middle-class demons have taken me to difficult places, such as Googling throw avocado. But a working-class burrito is something to be. The weight in either hand, peace and grief. Armed to the teeth, it's Iran 7 and England 3. You can hardly seem to miss. I love my country too much to be a nationalist. A taxi waits under a curfew moon to take you to a nameless hotel. And again, we are alone with everything. My sunburn pinkens to shame in your name as I stuff those two amigos into your rucksack. Pablo Neruda strolls past the community centre window on horseback. As I mentioned, I'm also a trustee of the Working Class Movement Library. Has anyone been to the Working Class Movement Library in Manchester? It's a fantastic place, probably the largest archive of working class material in the country. It's just over the road from Salford University, but any poet should go there. We've just got an amazing archive. And this next poem starts there, really. Has anyone heard of Benny Rothman in here? Yeah, Benny Rothman led the protest to the right to Rome in 1933. So he walked up on Kinderscow, and there's a big load of gang of guys from Cheetham Hill, and they were all arrested, and he was put in prison for essentially trespassing on private land. But he was saying that, you know, we all have a right to roam, and a lot of the freedoms that we have today are as a result of that man, certainly in the Northwest. And Benny was so poor he had to defend himself in court. And this poem starts while I'm holding his trial defence notes in the Working Class Movement Library. Slowly makes its way up to Kinderscow and the view from the top. It's called Right to Rome. And leaving the landscape of your scrolled page, I turned left out of yonder gate, where the moor floods the mind. Mythic with purple heathers and dark rock pools of time, and a mermaid with all her common majesty grants us both immortality. And when the darkness tried to own the light, to keep for itself in the private night, the stars came out to trespass the sky and burn witness to the lie. And if this poem were a sixpenny Woolworths map, and this compass needle a single blade of grass, quietly protesting between two cobblestones, but calling to you the right to roam, for all that is free can never be owned. And when the darkness tried to own the light, to keep for itself in the private night, the stars came out to trespass the sky and burn witness to the lie. And yours is the whisper that picks the lock, from Kinderscow to the Edale Cross, walking freely in your waking loss. I marvel at this view from the top, the wind farm's mass crucifixion, and there in the middle distance, 10,000 souls on Winter Hill. Freedom walks where freedom will. And when the darkness tried to own the light, to keep for itself in the private night, the stars came out to trespass the sky and burn witness to the lie. So, about 2 years ago, I was commissioned to write another poem. Ellis Lowry's Going to the Match. Has anyone seen this painting? It was recently bought back by the National Football Museum and the Lowry Archive, I think, for something ridiculous like £25 million. but it's actually a painting of Bolton Wanderers football ground. When I was, it kind of sat uneasy with me really that this thing was now worth so much money. And I was looking at the painting, I realised that my nan was born in the painting. There's a little row of terraced houses and she was born the fifth house down on the right-hand side of the canvas, as it mentions in the poem. And yeah, I wanted to write some working class history back into it. And my nan, when she was a little girl, my great-granddad was a miner and the mine collapsed on his arm. They couldn't afford the medical bills and he got gangrene and died. And so the poem begins with sort of my nan looking out the window in the painting, waiting for her father to return home, which of course he sadly never does. But yeah, I felt the need to write this in. But I very lazily, though, didn't go back to Bolton to write the poem. I went there on Google Earth and walked down the street. And as I walked past, the terraced houses are still there. And as I walked past, there was a little apparition in the window, and it almost looked like the ghost of Nan. But it opens with a quote from Thomas Hardy. "What past can be yours, O journeying boy, towards a world unknown?" I thought I saw her once on Google Earth. Nan was born in an L.S. Lowry painting. He's going to the match, to be exact. The sixth house down on the right-hand side of the canvas. But what you can't see is a little girl at the window waiting for her father to return home. And if you look hard enough, you'll know that he will never show because the mine has just collapsed. She only once spoke of that in her own painted figments of the past. We played our games of love and dying as she raised me. Two devout wanderers lost in matinee films until Nan's was no longer a part. Grief is to go where love can speak no more. And I thought I saw you there today as I walked our old road from my writing chair. And I thought I saw you there today on Google Earth. 2008 Street View. They have made a ghost of you in volatile memory, yet with all the ambiguity of Mr. Lowery, a blurred angel carved in light, as if that drop leaf table had wings. A stutter in the present tense holds you, where it is always spring. Again, you are the stillness in this hurried world, waiting for me to come home. And in the coupling of our souls, as I grow old, I can feel your stare behind my own. So. Right, I can feel the sorrow setting in, so I'm going to finish with a couple of funny poems, and then I shall leave you to your drinks and your evening. But it's been such a privilege to come and read here tonight. Obviously, solidarity with the people of Palestine. I am selling some books tonight. If you do want to come and buy one, they're £10 each. I'll donate any of the money that's raised towards the fund tonight. Feels like the fitting thing to do. You can get a good 40 minutes burn time in an open fire or chimney from either collection, though, as my girlfriend will vouch for you. So it is a thrifty investment as well. Yeah, this next poem is it's one of the first poems I ever wrote, actually, and I sort of use this as a children's poem a lot in schools. And about 10 years ago, there was a big lorry crash approaching the Trafford Centre, and this lorry was containing lots of battery hens and chickens, and a huge gust of wind came, blew over the lorry, and all these chickens sort of escaped onto the motorway, which was quite a beautiful thing to see, all the different personalities. And some escaped into the freedom of Eccles, and others remained at the site and were still institutionalised. And this is a bit of a Thelma and Louise story about two chickens vowing for their freedom on that day. It's called Free Range. I want to be free to do what I want to do, like Marlon Brando. I want to hand in my CV at Nando's and ride a Greyhound buzz into the heart of Kentucky and feed the Colonel a human butty. Does it really matter where a chicken settles? No, I just never imagined a life in Eccles. but it's handy for the Trafford Centre. Fuck off, I want some rural charm. That place is worse than the Battery Farm. I don't want to die in a spat-quat crucifixion. Out of my mind with a pellet addiction. This chicken is going to stay at large. I'm not going to go with an onion up my arse. Come on, Poussin, we've only got 28 days. Let us live, let us live, let us live, let's rage. In the later terms, kids, we ain't. So let's run into the arms of a great estate. The chicken catcher's coming like some mock angel. That Jobsworth fucker could ruin this fable. And if he had a soul, I would ask it. Does he want to end up as a chicken in a basket? And if a Citroen Picasso abstracts us both in the road, at least we gave our freedom a go. All right, I'll come. I'm just so afraid to live a life outside of this cage. And if I die today, hen, I know that you'd never betray me. But if they make a film about all this, don't let Mel Gibson play me. So if there are any working poets in the room, you'll know how difficult it was when lockdown hit. I couldn't do much teaching, there was no gigs, there was no workshops. We all had to sit inside, and I decided to do something which I promised myself I'd never ever do again, which was apply for a job. And I trained as an art teacher before I made the fiscally bad decision to become a poet. But here we are. Not that should put anybody off, but it's an endless journey of beauty and empathy, and everybody should take the leap. But here I found myself in a secondary school, sat across from this guy who was also going for the job. I didn't get the job on that day, and I have two people to thank. One is him, and the other is Billy Joel. And I will explain why. The guy had his earphones in, and I could hear this blurring out, and I was like, what are you listening to? And he said, I'm listening to We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel. It gets me in the mood for going into an interview. And this was fucking astonishing to me. And I remember looking at him thinking, you need this fucking job more than I do. So, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the work of Billy Joel. Uptown Girl, obviously. But he... We Didn't Start the Fire is basically a list song of... Basically, it's a potted world history, according to Billy Joel, with some very dubious near rhymes in it. And oddly, I ended up going on tour with Thea Gilmore last year, and I used to finish on this poem. And the sound guys in the venue started to play this as I walked off stage. So Billy Joel has made fucking more money on PRS from this poem. And when I published it, a lady got in touch and said, you should be careful, you've quoted Billy Joel directly there, and his press agents are fucking vicious and they'll be on to you. And I was like, all he's done is listed historic events. He has no ownership over these things. He lists Bridge on the River Kwai. My granddad built that fucking railroad. He's not giving my granddad any fucking PRS, is he? Anyway, I'm ranting. This is shortlisted about that day. Maybe don't put that bit on the website. The man sat next to me outside the interview room is listening to We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel. Removing his AirPods, he says, and believe me, this is gospel, when I get anxious, it helps remind me of my place in the grand scheme of things. I thought for a short while about all of our places in the worst list song of all time. Those shoehorned in near rhymes, Little Rock, Pasternak, Mickey Mantle, Kerouac, Sputnik, Chornlai, Bridge on the River Kwai, Lebanon, Charles de Gaulle, California baseball, start weather homicide, children of thalidomide. Suddenly, everything felt possible in poetry. In that thunderclapping moment, I knew nobody owned me. Like Grandpa, back in 44, working on that railroad, I found a place in my heart that was home. The ink was still wet when I tore the visitor's lanyard from my chest. Still, I was no better, laughing at the odds, cutting deals with God in my head, listening to Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel as I left. Embarrassingly though, I had to go back. I needed the pass to leave the premises. But who doesn't find it emancipating when they imagine they are walking out of Genesis? Thank you. It's been such a privilege to come and read to you all tonight. Thanks again for putting on such a wonderful night. Long may it continue, and best luck in the future with everything. Yeah, please come and see me afterwards and get a free book and donate £10 to the Palestinian Children's Fund. I'll leave you with this short love poem. This is called Ache. And the only cure is true love. So go looking for the one. But it's rarer than an NHS dentist that is still taking on. Thank you very much.
Oliver J Lomax! Give him a big round of applause. That was absolutely stunning. That was genuinely stunning. We're at the end of our night. It's gone all right. I don't know about you guys. I've enjoyed myself. So you guys enjoyed yourselves? Yes. Fucking loved it. But yes, no, thank you to everyone who's performed. We've had such a beautiful evening. I'll say 3 very quick things before I let you all go. First of all, because I've not thought about him until your set. Fuck Tony Blair. Hate that fucking guy. I'd not thought about him all day, and then was like, yeah, fucking Nosferatu on the face of Europe's biggest labour movement. Fuck you. Anyway, fuck him. Secondly, I've had the best time. I've had the absolute best time up here comparing for all of you. I do want to mark, because TJ mentioned it as well, it was not originally supposed to be me. It was supposed to be TMO, Tash Monarisi, who was up and was going to be comparing this tonight. Tash is like a fucking warrior, is like the strongest person I know, and has been dealt the shittest hand in the last couple of months. And so I just want to send her big love. And we all just love her. Wishing her well. So yeah, and very finally, I want to thank Ian and Jade Lantern Records, because this has been absolutely fucking lush. And there's an energy to this event that I've really, really enjoyed and found a lot of love in. I think that the origin of that is in the energy that Ian has brought to the evening and what he's brought together and how he respects and shows love to the artists that he supports. So I just want to send an absolutely massive thank you. With that, I will leave you to it. It's been great fun. My left eye feels like fucking shit. Let's all have a lovely evening. I love you all so much. Thank you very much. I'm James.